Good morning, guys. I'm just going to run through our notes real quickly here today. So, hopefully, we have a decent e learning day. So, first off, here we have just a couple warm up review type problems to get exponents back into our head. So, number one, we have 14 to the fifth times 14 to the second. Remember, when we multiply exponents or multiply the same base, we add the exponents. So, we'll say, what's 5 plus 7? So we'll get 14 to the power of, 5 plus 2, and 5 plus 2 gives us 7. Over here, when we have on number 2, we have negative 8 to the power of 4 raised to the third power. So we multiply the two exponents. So 4 times 3 gives us 12, so we get negative 8 to the power of 12. Number 3, it's the same idea. We're multiplying these exponents. So we get m minus 3 to the power of 24. 6 times 4 is 24. And on one like number 4, remember both the 2 and the s have an exponent of 1. So we have to distribute this 3 and multiply it. So we get negative 2 to the third, s to the third. 2 to the third is 8. So we get negative 8s to the third. And that's our final answer. Now, we also have two rules we're looking at today, and they're called the zero exponent rule and the negative exponent rule. So this is saying our zero exponent rule, if we have an exponent of 0, anytime that happens, our whole answer is just going to turn to 1, with the exception of 0 to the power of 0. That's just going to be undefined, which I will shorten as UND. But UND stands for undefined. So for example, over here, let's say I have 1/3 to the power of 0. It doesn't matter that this is a fraction. All that means is because I see this exponent of 0, my whole answer is just 1. So 1/3 to the power of 0 just equals 1. Likewise, let's say I have 2x to the 0. We just have to be careful here because the 2 has its own exponent of 1. So only this x to the 0 right here is 1, but we still have this 2 to the first left. So this just equals 2. So we just need to be careful about what has the 0. Because when we see something with the power of 0, it's true that it equals 1, but we need to make sure that we're not just throwing out zeros left and right. The other thing we have is called a negative exponent. If you noticed before today, all of our exponents were positive, so this is why we're going over what to do if we see a 0 or a negative exponent. So the first one, let's say we have a negative exponent in our numerator. And you heard me say the word numerator, so we have to think about fractions. So if this happens, we're going to take our whole exponent and just move it to the bottom, the whole term. So this would be 1 over x, and when we do that, it becomes positive. So if we have 1 that's already starting in the bottom, where do you think it's going to move? Well, this time it'll move to the top. So we just get x to the positive a over 1. So let's say for my example over here, I have 2 to the power of negative 3. Well, this is already on top. So where am I going to move it? I'm going to move it to the bottom. So this gives me 1 over 2 to the positive 3. And this one we've done today, that's 1 over 8. Okay, let's say I have something like 1 over x to the negative 5. Oh, we see that negative exponent, so what do we have to do? We have to flip it to the top. So we have x to the positive 5 over 1. So those are the two rules we're looking at today. Let's look at a couple more examples. So for number 1 right here, we have 3 to the negative 2. Oh, I see my negative exponent. What do I have to do to it? I have to flip it to the bottom. So I have 1 over 3 to the positive 2. And I know 3 to the power of 2 is 9, so I get 1 over 9. How about number 2? Oh, I see this exponent of 0. What do I do with an exponent of 0? The whole thing just becomes 1. That's it. Number 3, we see a fraction. What do we do if we see an exponent on the outside? Remember, we need to distribute. So I have 1 to the power of negative 2 over 5 to the power of negative 2. What do I see? Negative exponents. So this whole guy on top flips to the bottom. The whole guy on bottom flips to the top. So I get 5 to the power of 2 over 1 to the power of 2. So if you notice, they just flip-flopped. And this is another pretty simple one. So 5 to the power of 2 is just 25. 1 to the power of 2 is just 1. So my answer is 25. Lastly, on number 4, 0 to the power of negative 5. Oh, I see my negative exponent. What does that mean? I have to flip. So I have 1 over 0 to the 5th. What is 0 to the 5th? Well, 0 times 0 times 0 times 0 times 0, that's just 0. We're not allowed to have 0 on bottom, so this one ends up being undefined. So those are examples we would have gone through in class together. The next 4 you would have done on your own. But since you're not here, I'll run through them real fast. I see an exponent of 0, so this equals 1. Over here, I see a negative exponent, so I'll flip it to the bottom. The whole negative 8 to the power of 2, and negative 8 times negative 2 gives me 64. Positive, negative times negative is positive. Number 7, I see a negative exponent, so I have to flip it to the top. And what is 2 to the power of 3? Well, it's 8. And 8 over 1 is 8. Number 8 right here, I see this exponent of 0. So what does that mean this equals? 1. So that would have been the front page of our notes today. If we look over here to the back page, those are all of the exponent rules that we're going to learn. Now it's just combining them and being able to simplify exponents. So for number 9, what do we see? Ooh, I have lots of markers I could use. But for number 9, we see multiplication. So what does that mean we do to our exponents? We add them. So what's negative 4 plus 4? It's 0. So we get 6 to the power of 0. What's anything to the power of 0? It's 1. Number 10, what do we do to those two exponents? We multiply them first. So we have 4 to the power of negative 4. What do we do with our exponent? Because it's negative, we flip it. So we get 1 over 4 to the 4. What is 4 to the 4? Well, that's 256. Number 11, what do we see? Oh, we see a negative exponent. We have to flip it. So we get 3 to the power of 4, which just gives us 81. Then how about number 12? We subtract first. So what's negative 1 minus 2? That gives me 5 to the negative 3. I see a negative exponent, so I flip it. So 1 over 5 to the positive 3, which gives me 1 over 125. So again, at this time, I would have you do the next 4 down here. I'll run through the answers real fast. Number 13, negative exponent tells me to flip it. It's on bottom, so I flip it to top. So I get 4 to the 3rd, which is 64. Number 14, I would multiply these exponents. Negative times negative gives me a positive. So do I have to flip this one here? No, it just stays on top. So 5 to the 3rd just gives me 125. Number 15, I have to add 5 and negative 5. So I end up getting negative 3 to the 0. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. Then number 16, I would have to subtract these exponents to get negative 2 minus 2, which is negative 4. I see a negative exponent, so I have to flip it. Then 6 to the 4th is 1,296. So it's 1 over 1,296. We're going to run through numbers 17 and 20 real fast and then call it a day. Again, it's just combining our exponent rules. So what do we do when we see an exponent on the outside? We need to distribute to all the exponents on the inside. What do we do if we don't see an exponent? Well, it's an exponent of 1. So I distribute to that 3, I distribute to that, to that 1 and to that 1. So 1 times 3 gives me an exponent of 3 on my 2. 1 times 3 gives me an exponent of 3 on my x. And then negative 5 times 3 gives me an exponent of negative 15. Ooh, that's a bad 5. There we go, negative 15 on my y. Now I'm just going to look through each of the terms and see if I can simplify them. 2 to the 3rd, I know I can, because that's 8. So we've simplified that. Can we simplify x to the 3rd at all? No, so we're just going to rewrite it over here. Now what about this y to the negative 15? Oh, I see a negative exponent. So what do? I have to flip it to the bottom. So the only guy who flipped there was the y. The other two guys get to stay on top because they were positive exponents. So on your homework, when I give you some exponents that are positive and some that are negative, you only flip the negative ones, not the positive ones. So lastly, for number 19, this looks a lot harder than it actually is. I'm going to break this up into 3 mini problems. Keep my numbers together, so 3 over 9. Keep my x's together, so x to the 1st over x to the 3rd. And then keep my y's together. Y to the negative 3 over y to the 1st. And now just simplify each of these. Can I reduce the fraction? Yeah, I can divide it by negative 3 to get 1 over 3. How do I simplify x to the 1st over x to the 3rd? I'll subtract my exponents. Top minus bottom, 1 minus 3, would give me x to the negative 2. Oh, negative exponent, I have to flip it. So I get 1 over x to the 2nd. Same thing for our y's. I'll do top minus bottom. So negative 3 minus 1 gives me y to the negative 4. Same idea. I have to flip it. 1 over y to the 4th. So how do we write our answer? We basically just multiply straight across the top. So what's 1 times 1 times 1? That's 1. On bottom, 3 times x to the 2nd times y to the 4th. We can't combine any of those, so we're just going to stick them next to each other. So 3x to the 2nd, y to the 4th. So that's our answer. So we just took our problem and broke it up into smaller ones. So I hope that this video was helpful for you as you complete your work today. If you have any questions at all, anytime, feel free to Canvas message me whenever. And I hope that you all enjoy your day and have a great day relaxing in the snow.